Well, with the riots and the coronavirus pandemic, we're seeing something that at the beginning of the year you probably wouldn't have, and that is a skyrocketing amount of gun sales in the United States. People who have never touched a gun in their life are going out and buying guns. People who were anti-gun, that's how they classified themselves, are going out and purchasing firearms as they're seeing police departments torched, them rendered incapable. So they are taking their own protection in their own hands. We'll talk about that on this edition of The WireTap. Hello everyone, my name is JD, and this is Logan, and this is The WireTap. Thank you for joining us today. Gun sales are going through the roof right now, and just to start right off, here from Forbes, according to FBI reports, 4 million people in the month of March alone. That's how many background checks that they did, that the FBI did for gun purchases. So it's a fairly good metric for how many people are purchasing guns. And they had 4 million background checks in the month of March alone. And furthermore, you had 2.5 million new gun owners in the first 6 months of 2020, of this year. 2.5 million new gun owners, and that's according to National Shooting Sports Foundation. And this has been a trend that we've seen all across the country as well. In Virginia, you had 81,000 gun transactions in the month of June alone, which topped the record set in March with 80,000. And furthermore, in California, you have gun sales up by 72%. There were 164,000 background checks for gun purchases in the month of March alone. And it says that the level of purchasing there in California is almost to the level as it was pre-election in 2016. So you're having a large amount of people buy guns in the United States who have never had guns before, which can be both a good thing and a bad thing if they're not taught proper gun safety, proper gun etiquette, things that even experienced handlers of firearms sometimes are liable to forget or be negligent in their exercising of. And FBI numbers show that 3.9, as we said, 3.9 million background checks. This is from AL.com. And it says halfway through 2020, 19 million background checks have been done, more than all of 2020, or rather all of 2012, in each of the years before that. So you've had 19 million background checks in the first 6 months of 2020.
And I mean, we're not even counting in the gun show loophole yet.
You've had all of these background checks for people purchasing firearms, which is really amazing whenever you consider mass shootings happen, how many people are out there screaming from the rooftops, putting things up on social media with hashtags, and it shows you, and I've said this before, it shows you that what you see on Twitter, what you see on social media is not reality. People are very easily swayed, and this is where we are in our culture right now, is people are very easily swayed by things that are going to get them attention, that are going to get them positive feedback. It's sad, and everyone's like, no, not me. I would never do such a thing. Meanwhile, they are. A lot of people do that. To where they post things, or they go with the crowd because that's what's popular. That's what gets a lot of popular attention and positive attention. And so they do those things. And it shows you that whenever you look at social media, and for one, the demographics on Twitter is like 70 to 80% liberal users. But whenever you look at social media and you see all these things and you just feel so hopeless and you feel very burdened and troubled by what the future of America is going to look like, you have to realize that reality is not social media, because some of those same people that are posting these things, that are posting about Black Lives Matter or, just Second Amendment gun control in general, in reality, in practice, in real life, whenever it actually comes down to it, a lot of them are not going to sign their name to it. A lot of them are not going to pull the lever for it, so to speak. And that's what you're seeing here, is you're having so many new people come into the fold and say, I need to protect myself because it's obvious that the government isn't going to do it for me. That's what you've been told by the left for years and years and years. Joe Biden's infamous clip about why do you need an AR-15? All you need is a good double-barrel shotgun. That's all you need. You don't need an AR-15. You don't need 30 rounds in a magazine, because that's an instrument solely designed for killing. Well, I'd ask him what any firearm is designed for then at that point, even if it's just for hunting. But he says all you need is a double-barrel shotgun. What you're seeing is that that's obviously not the case, and I'm sure that you've all by now seen this stuff here in our good old state of Missouri and up in St. Louis. You had that couple up there in their gated private community. They're not conservatives. I know what kind of people they are. They are liberal. They're good old St. Louis liberals up there, but they're common sense enough. And you know what? I do give at least some liberals here in Missouri a little bit of credit to where they're not totally off the freaking wall crazy, to where they are not so dyed in the wool. But granted, most of those are older.
We've been blessed to live in such a nice state.
Granted, they're older. A lot of those people are your 30, 40, 50-year-old liberals who grew up in a time to where they weren't so just indoctrinated and progressively far left radical as the younger generation is. The younger generation is not like that. These people have been in the real world, see how it operates, and even though they hold liberal values, they are a little more common sense than other people. But as I was saying, you've probably seen those people and them defending themselves against not peaceful protesters, despite what Don Lemon might tell you. They're not peaceful. They busted down the gate of their community and are marching through a private community in an armed mob going to Lyda Crusen's house. Despite what the media says, none of this, they always put the asterisk in front of it, mostly peaceful. Well, here's the thing. Either your protest is peaceful or it's not. All right? And it's one thing if people infiltrate the protest and they're purposely agitating with the intention of your protest being deemed violent. That's another thing, but that's not what we're seeing. Okay? Did we just forget 2014 Ferguson? Did we just forget all of that? Because that was Black Lives Matter. Antifa didn't exist then.
Yeah.
That was Black Lives Matter that destroyed buildings, destroyed lives, divided this community here in Missouri in 2014. That was Black Lives Matter. All right? It's one thing if people infiltrate. It's another thing if your group is doing those things. So stop with the stupid, mostly peaceful stuff. It's either peaceful or it wasn't. All right?
And it was
just because you're standing 20 feet away as somebody lights a match and you're part of the protest and you're just watching and letting that happen, I'm sorry, that's guilt by association. your gathering, your assembly is no longer peaceful.
Yeah, and it was incredible to watch in Georgia this weekend, where I believe it was a 6-year-old girl, maybe, that was shot and killed, and the father.
I think she was 8.
8.
I think so.
And the father came out and he said to the activists, "You just killed one of your own." Because it was a part of their protest and their activism that led to her getting shot and killed.
What you're seeing, and this is good. This is a good thing, and this is kind of what ties back into really what is 4th of July. You know, what does our independence mean? What was it that we stood upon whenever we declared our independence? And the Declaration of Independence says that the ends of government is to protect your rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which comes from John Locke, which is property. For our purposes here, we'll just talk about those 3 things: life, liberty, and property. John Locke speaks about how you, as an individual, what we do whenever we get into a society is we allow the government to become the arbitrator of justice, because we remove ourselves from executing our own justice, so that we are not impartial, so that we are not partial. Rather, we put it up to an impartial government. All men in the society agree to that. For any kind of trespasses against your inalienable rights, the government's job is to protect those. In the absence of that, you do have the right yourself to be able to protect your life, your liberty, and your property if someone is threatening to take one of those rights away from you. Whenever the government cannot do those things, and in this case that would be law enforcement, you have the right to be the executor of your own justice, to defend your life, liberty, and property eminently. And that's what you're seeing. That is the philosophical and the ideological reason behind why conservatives support the Second Amendment. I don't know if anybody's ever put it in those terms before, but that's really what it is. It's not just more guns equals less crime. It goes a lot deeper than that, and it is the principle that you have the right to defend your life, liberty, and property, things that you are endowed by your Creator, by God, with, that only He can take away. That's what inalienable means. The government doesn't give it to you. You don't give them to yourself. You don't give yourself life. You don't give yourself property or liberty. Those are endowed by you, by your Creator, by God, and therefore only He has the right to take those away. And therefore you have the right to defend yourself whenever somebody is going to unduly take those rights away from you. That is the philosophical reason behind what we believe. It's not just statistics. It's not just because we like things that go bang. There is a real reason behind it. And you can defend yourself in a variety of ways, but the fact is that firearms have been around for centuries. And that is the most effective way to defend yourself at the present. And as time goes along, there might be more effective ways, and firearms might fall out of favor because there might be more effective ways to defend yourself. But that's in the future that we can't possibly know. But the point in all this is that this can be a good and a bad thing. What I encourage you, if you yourself are a new owner of a firearm, go to a training course. Go to an instruction class. Learn how to operate that firearm and operate it well, especially if you're going to carry it. If it is a home defense weapon, it is also important to know how to operate it well, how to operate it in high-stress situations. But if you're going to carry it, for one, most states, you probably have to get a concealed carry license unless you have constitutional carry like you do here in the great state of Missouri, to where you don't need a permit to carry your firearm. But most of the time you will have to get a concealed carry permit depending on where you live. So that includes a training course. Pay attention, take notes, and become intimately familiar with that firearm. Because there are cases of people who, whenever they draw that arm, them just not being experienced with that gun, or them failing to know how to properly operate it, has cost them their life. Something as simple as them not knowing how to flip the safety.
Or it has cost somebody else's life because they discharge it in a wrongful manner.
Exactly. Learn how to operate your firearm if you are a new firearms owner. A lot of you probably are already, and I'm preaching to the choir. But if you're new, go to a training course. Learn how to make your gun become your best friend. Because ultimately, if you ever draw it and have to use it, it will be. It will be the thing that saves your life. So treat it with respect. Learn gun safety. Learn gun etiquette. All right, and we could make a whole video on what to do if you are going to conceal and carry, what kind of guns you want to look at, because there's a whole slew of them. You can go with ultra compact, just your your subcompact and everything. Like, there are so many different sizes, there are so many different types, so many different calibers. You can do 380, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 auto. Those are pretty well all of your carry calibers. And there's a whole ton of different brands, and depending on what your price range is, the bottom line is go to your local firearms dealer if you don't know and you're interested. Look and see, and quite honestly, look here on YouTube. YouTube is a fantastic resource. There are so many firearms channels and so many good content creators putting up content of firearms that you might potentially want to buy. All right, you have semi-automatics, you have revolvers, and there's a whole slew of things that can be tailored right to you, and not for that much, can suit your taste aesthetically or for what you need it for. So with that being said, it appears as though, and we'll see how this plays out in the future, I will be really interested to see how support for the Second Amendment looks going forward. With this many new gun owners, with this many people who have never touched a firearm in their life are now going out buying guns, learning how to use them for their own personal protection.
Because it's going to be a tough sell for the Democrats coming up if they are doing defund the police and they shift to attacking the Second Amendment.
Taking, restricting your guns and restricting the Second Amendment, trying to put in gun control measures. That's a really hard sell because you've not seen the degradation of society in these cities like you have right now. Because up until this point, they've said, what do you need a gun for? There's the police. Well, guess what? The police aren't even facing an armed insurrection. They're just facing
regular crime.
They're just facing mob violence, and also coupled with bureaucracy and politicians and political games and all the like. But they're not even facing serious armed resistance. They're just facing mob violence, which is dangerous, extremely dangerous in and of itself. But they do have means and ways of controlling that, but they're not. This is all caught up in bureaucracy. This is all caught up in political calculations. And people's lives are being destroyed. People are being hurt. So people are seeing, hey, I need to protect myself. And this is something that we've said for a long time. The police are not always going to be able to be there quick enough. The police are not always going to be able to be at your door to protect you. You need to take personal responsibility, and you need to decide if you take your inalienable rights, if you take your, not even, let's get off that, the rights thing. If you take your life, if you take your loved ones' lives and your property seriously enough, that you are willing to defend them if need be, that is a question you need to ask yourself. But we want to thank you for joining us on this edition of the WireTap. And Logan, he's back today. Look at him. Look at him.
I'm glowing.
He's been sick. So again, you can follow us on Twitter. We're at the CWire, capital TCNW, and as we said, we are on Parler. We have decided to make the jump a little bit, put our feet in both pools of water, and we're the same handle there, capital TCNW, at the CWire on Parler and Twitter. So for Logan, I am JD saying goodbye, God bless, and we will see you in the next episode. Turn off that music. I'm gonna get copyright.
Am I there yet?
I'm gonna get copyright strikes.